So it has been almost a year since I last talked about the Snow White situation, where an actress personally tanked the release of a $100 million movie before it ever even hit theaters. This of course all came in the wake of several interviews lead woman Rachel Zegler would do, where she was very critical of the original Snow White movie that she would now be starring in.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Now this was a surprise to people because at first she had seemed pretty grateful for this opportunity.
Every day on Snow White was a pinch me moment. I was surrounded by the best crew and the best people ever, and even just getting to see our director Mark today was just like, oh, right. We made a movie and it's really wonderful and it's yummy and it feels really delicious in my heart.
But then something would obviously change. And there were other instances where she would be caught straight up lying about her experiences with the film and with Disney in general.
I'm a really big Disney fan. I grew up at the Disney parks. My parents took me every summer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's like, it's a part of my upbringing. It's my favorite thing, so.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Was terrified of it, never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years when I was doing this film.
Now obviously these interviews and the side-by-side lies would go super viral, and the Disney people are very serious about their movies. So they were out rioting in the streets over this, looting the local Toys R Us, and overall it seemed like every time she opened up her mouth,
Weird.
it was hurting this movie and its future release. Disney in general has had issues with several of their live-action remakes, as they are mostly known over the last couple of decades for not being able to hold the jockstrap of the original films. And when people specifically speak about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disney fans seem to hold it up in a very high echelon, as it is largely considered to be the origin of the full-length animated film, premiering for the first time back on December 21st of 1937. And let me just tell you guys right now that these people love that fucking mouse. To me, it's almost like he has mind control on their ass that makes them fly all the way to California, spend hundreds of dollars on a hotel, $40 to park, hundreds of dollars to enter Mickey's asshole, and of course you cannot forget $70 on some stupid ass ears with their $20 churro in their hand. Screaming kids everywhere, long ass lines. Not to mention the rides kinda suck. I mean, I don't know, I just don't really see the appeal. But this means something to them, damn it, and so they were up in arms. And with damn near 100 years between the two releases of these films, obviously some things are going to be changed. But when that change comes at the core messaging of the film or some of the main characters, I do feel like people are pretty much always going to have a problem with that. For example, Rachel and this other woman, Gal Gadot, were out bragging about the fact that this was no longer going to be a love story, but now it was going to be a tale of women's empowerment, calling the old film outdated and creepy.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power.
Also, the fact that she's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's the proactive one, and she's the one who set the terms.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for like modernizing a film, but to me there are plenty of other Disney movies that are kind of all about showcasing women being badass, with kind of the core messaging being that a woman can do anything a man can. For example, you got Mulan, you got the redheaded chick with the bow, and I'm sure there's many more, I'm just really not into Disney like that. Either way, when an early scene from the movie leaked, People everywhere were wondering why the hell they swapped out the iconic 7 dwarfs to replace them with the Justice League of Diversity. Now personally, I would have loved to see actual dwarfs being used in the making of this film, and I'm sure they could have made them well-loved characters helping the actors out with their careers. You know, it's not like there's a whole lot of work for little people in Hollywood. And this decision would prove to be a bad one. In fact, so bad that at first Disney lied and then had to double back to admit that this was the plan to use this weird cast of characters. And the outrage was actually so loud that Disney had to pretty much go back and refilm this entire movie, making it a $100 million blunder as they would now use CGI dwarfs instead of the Justice League crew. And now they won't even be calling them dwarfs anymore, and they will now be referring to them as magical creatures. In fact, they took the word dwarf straight out the title. Regardless of Disney's attempt to right their wrongs and steer this massive ship in the right direction, sometimes the waters are just too choppy, and no matter how you try and navigate a situation to try and fix it, the damage has already been done and it goes down like the Titanic. It's like when your friend keeps going back to that toxic ex who keeps cheating on him. Like, good luck with that, dude. We already saw the trailer and we know how this shit's gonna end. Now, speaking of trailers, over 10 months after all the drama, and a year after most of those interviews, the newly released version has come out, and it's actually rumored to be one of the most disliked videos in YouTube history. As you guys can see, the new release date is around a year after the original rendition of this film was set to come out. Here we get to see the CGI dwarves in action cleaning up her room. I guess she just sees them as her little slaves now. Grumpy, you f***ing clean the toilet, you bitch. Obviously, we get to see Snow White played by Rachel herself, as well as the evil queen, Other Lady, and in general, people were still upset about this, as you could see by the dislikes. And most of the negative comments I saw, which was pretty much like all of them, were mainly about the new CGI solution to the dwarf fiasco. I mean, just based on the trailer, this looks like just about every other Disney live-action remake we have gotten recently, a mixture of real people and shitty CGI. Like I said, something Disney has been known for a very long time. I mean, there's so many examples in their various movies of the CGI just not looking natural at all in the real-world environment. Like Roger Rabbit was looking better than this shit, and it's going on 40 years old. But I mean, hey, I might be biased towards Jessica Rabbit, cause goddamn. You know, back in the day, I would flip on that Cartoon Network, Roger Rabbit would be playing, I was like, should I be watching this? And don't get me wrong, I understand wanting to get a new generation of kids into something that is very successful for an entity like Disney, but there is always a right and a wrong way to do so. For example, back when I was a kid, I loved baseball, and one of my favorite movies was a cult classic film from the 70s called The Bad News Bears, a raunchy comedy about a ragtag team of misfits who tries to compete in a tough little league division. I already loved this movie, and in 2005 when they made an updated version to it, I couldn't have been more excited. And while the two movies are obviously different, as the new one had been brought into a modern era, especially with its humor, it still held close enough to its source material that it was very enjoyable. Whereas Snow White seems to be dead on arrival, based on decisions made in not only the creation of the film, but also by the lead character's offset. I really do think that Disney forgot about the sunk cost fallacy here, and they really should have taken this movie out back and shot it once the original negative feedback started rolling in. Now it really just feels like them showing up to a party that they weren't really invited to. Just look at how these two have changed their tone towards each other since that first interview only a year ago.
I'm always grateful, and I have to pinch myself for the love and the appreciation and the respect that we get from our incredible audience. So yes, I'm very, very lucky, grateful, and privileged for all this love.
I mean, Rachel won't even look her in the eyes at this point. After all the heat she's received from this whole situation, I wouldn't be surprised if she despises both her, this film, and even her part in it, as what was supposed to be one of the biggest roles of her career and a true breakout opportunity could now put the nail in the coffin of her chances at stardom. I mean, when you really think about it, if everything would have gone right, this is a film that people might be watching for 30, 40, 50 years. Like, I'm talking about future generations of people going back and showing it to their kids like they did with the original Snow White. And it appears these two also might have tension due to their widely different political beliefs, which they both seem very passionate about. So I would not be surprised if their relationship has soured at this point, like milk left out in the Texas sun. But I want to know what you guys think about all of this down below. Should Disney just stop making these real-life renditions of their classic movies? In general, remakes usually have a hard time recapturing that magic of the original film. And I really do think this Snow White, which you would think would be destined for success, is probably going to be a pretty big flop for Disney after they just kept pouring so much money in. I don't know, I guess that's kind of why I dressed like this today, because I knew it was kind of going to be a funeral for Disney. But either way, y'all let me know what you guys think. I do want to thank you guys for watching today's video, dropping a like and subscribing. But as you guys know, it's been your boy the Tan Superman, and some other Mickey Mouse drama out here needs to be covered, so I'm out. Peace!